First thing we're going to do today, we want to get kit in, remove the saddlebags, the seat, and disconnect the battery. Okay.
Right here is located the maxi fuse. Supplies the power to the entire bike. We're going to remove these chrome covers here from the frame on both sides and the saddlebag bracket so we can see the rest of the fender bolts. We'll remove this bracket and we won't reuse it in the 180 kit. The fender or the license plate will be mounted in the fender.
You remove both bolts here, hold the bottom part of the license plate bracket, or the horseshoe bracket.
One of these bolts goes clear through the fender, and the other bolt just goes under the chrome strut, down right there. Just pull this out a little ways and then you can slide this clean out like that. I like to lay all my old hardware that I take out in order. That way you just keep track of everything for disassembly and assembly. We'll remove these muffler bodies so we can remove the wheel with these two bolts here and the clamp right here, and the muffler will slide out.
Sometimes you have a real hard time getting the muffler off, so usually here, this won't come off very good, so you push down and pull on it to get it loosened up a little bit. The clamp is really tight. I have a 3/8 ratchet wrench. We're going to remove the back two bolts in the bolt guard or the belt guard and just loosen the front bolt. And slide the guard out. Then we slide the belt guard out. Put these bolts back next to the guard so you don't lose them.
Place the rear of this motorcycle on a jack, or if you can get it up on a block. If you got a nice flat jack like these, it works pretty good. I like to set them right here on this crossover piece on the bottom of the frame. I like to go up so I know the wheel's moving, and I go back down just a little bit to take the weight off, so I just can't move it.
First to remove the axle through the rear wheel. We're going to pull this E-clip off here and then loosen this nut so we can pull the axle out the other side of the bike.
The reason I left a little bit of weight on that wheel is so all the wheel, that weight of the tire isn't sitting on the axle, so the axle will slide out a lot easier. Now I can push that axle out just about with my fingers. You'll see when this axle slides out, it'll run into this saddlebag support. So by removing these two bolts, you can either pick it up enough to pull it out, but actually this whole assembly here will have to be removed anyways. So at this time we'll remove the crash guard, a saddlebag mount to pull the axle out.
You'll need to have a 9/16 wrench on the inside to hold this nut. This one just threads into the frame.
Once you remove these two bolts, you can just slide this right up and out. I like to set it on a nice rag so you don't scratch nothing. By removing the saddlebag bracket, we can slide this axle out real nicely. Sometimes if you got a bike with a lot more miles, you might need to tap it out with a rubber hammer, but they usually slide out pretty good. You can pull them up here and get them out of the way for a little while. Wheel, then we can remove that wheel. Once you get it up a little bit, pull your belt out of the way. Hold it out of the way as you go up. And by rolling that wheel back and turning it sideways, it'll slip right out of there. 2008 Harley Davidson touring models did a cush drive pulley system where it sits on rubber biscuits. And with our new 180 wheel, we'll be reusing the cush drive system. So we'll remove these 5 bolts here to pull the cush drive off.
As removing the last bolt, we'll make sure that the rotor will not hit the rim and drop to the floor.
On pre-07s, there's a bolt in this fender underneath here. You'll want to remove that bolt to get the fender out. The only 2 bolts we have left right here are the 2 bolts right here, which are T40s. There's one on each side. Then unplug the wiring harness and remove it, and your rear fender will slip right out.
Fender comes right out.
Get a good can of Showtime or a cleaner that you prefer, and just clean all this stuff. On the earlier models, pre-07, you'll have to change the inner pulley to get a smaller belt on it. Because the older ones run a wide belt and you want to go to a 1-inch. 07, 08 up, like Dan was saying earlier, you can use this belt and the stock pulley. We also offer a different pulley for the front and rear for these models also. Because right now they run a 34 front and a 66 rear tooth pulleys. When we find it out going to a 30 and a 70 on the rear, it gets a little bit better pull through the highway gears and stuff. It's not necessary, nothing you have to do, but it's definitely an option for some people.
We're going to lay all of our parts out and keep all of them separate, not to mix anything up. That's why we did not pull them out of the box before by instructions. So we have our gasket kit, our rear E-coated fender, here's our.
This is the optional pulley, comes with it. The 70 tooth. This is an optional. It does not come with the 08 kits. We will not be using it in this kit either. And this is the front pulley, the 30 tooth, the optional 30 tooth. In the box you'll find your instructions. Do not lose these. Go step by step. This kit comes with absolutely everything you need besides your wheel.
We're gonna test fit this in the bike to make sure everything fits before we get it painted. Make sure there's not anything that jumps out at us if we already have a painted fender. Maybe the fender was damaged to you in shipping, or your bike is damaged. We want to make sure that this fits before we do any kind of painting to this fender. So we can just set it up in here.
Set this fender up here, slip some bolts in it, put our fillers in. Everything fits nice right here. I can tell that nothing's too tight. Everything lines up nice. I pulled the bolt out, the stock bolt. The 2 washers that came off of it, one's a lock washer and one's a flat washer. We'll reuse them. The new bolts that came in the shock hardware bag is an 1/8 inch longer. Take your new chrome bolt, slide over the original hardware, go back in the original hole with the spacer in between the shock and the shock boss. Make sure you have Loctite on the bolt like I did, and make sure you use your torque wrench to the right value that it says in your service manual.
I'll remove the existing bolt. Here they are again, taking both pieces of the washer and the flat washer off the old bolt. Putting them on the new bolt. Lock washer first. And we'll put a little dab of red Loctite on there again.
No, you too.
We need our 1/8 inch spacer next to the frame. Next step on our directions, we're going to replace the bag support bar with a new stock Harley Street Glide style bar. Putting the flat washer on the button head and then put the spacer on. And then we'll put the lock nut behind, like so. The drop brackets on. Chris already installed this on. So we have, in our hardware kit, we have 2 bolts and then 2 locking nuts. And there's also 2 short bolts with each have a flat washer. We'll use we'll use those here in a few minutes. And we'll just tighten these bolts down, 1/2 inch. Put the support strut on to the drop bracket we just assembled. Get it kind of snug.
You don't want to get them too tight because we'll be running bolts through the second hole here on one each side. It'll go through these and the fender. So if you get this too tight before, you'll have a hard time getting the bolt through.
Now we're going to put the fender support bracket on to these drop brackets and our bag support bar all together here. That's right. So you didn't really get it.
We'll just keep everything loose so you got movement when you put the fender in. That way you ain't jamming anything tight, scratching any paint. You got plenty of movement everywhere. Once you get the fender in there, then you can go back and retighten everything. A little dab will do you. Today when we're installing this 180 kit on Jason Hanson's bike, I just wanted to go over a couple things and show you a couple different deals with our fender versus the stock fender. As you can tell, our stock fender is pretty close to being like, our fender's being like the stock one. It's got a stretch to it. It's made of 16 gauge steel, so it's a real heavy, solid fender. And you got the options where we could put these different tail lights in, bolts in. So there's basically no mods you need to do to it. You can see right here, side holes. Cut out for the bag supports. It's cut out for the seat tab. That's cut out for your wires to run through. Oval tail light end. And you can see all the extra wire that we have here. What actually is going to happen is after I run the wire through heat shrink and shrink it down to the length I want, I will actually end up cutting this end off and then soldering it onto this, so then I still got the stock plug-in onto it. After paint, you'll want to stick these lights in here to make sure that there isn't too much mud or paint material in here and your light won't fit. This one here goes in there pretty tight. Fits in there nicely. If there was too much paint, it wouldn't go in there at all. You shrink over your wires and you don't get a nice shrink on it. Usually give yourself about 4 inches of bare wire.
A couple things we want to remove from our old fender that we're going to stick in the new Clockworks 180 fender. We want to remove these two bolt nuts, and that holds the wiring harness here inside the fender. And we also want to remove the nut for the seat.